business was started in 1974, 50 years ago. Where it came from really was a group of farmers got together in 74. There was no market for mountain lamb at the time. Stubble farmers used to come down from up the country, would come one year, mightn't come another year. And so they set about marketing the lamb themselves, and with the help of Tagus and the advisory service, they discovered that these lambs could be fattened, number one, and number two, it could be done viably. And they set about setting up the buildings. The rest then, I suppose, is history, like, you know, and it worked well for, I suppose, 8 to 9 years. Looking back on it, the problem, I suppose, there's always problems, I suppose, but you could sit down, you could get quotations for your meal, which the meat manufacturers were good, in fairness. You knew what your store lambs were costing you, and you knew what the lambs would convert at. But the big question you didn't know was what you were going to get for them. And nothing, in fairness, nothing has changed today. Factories still won't go too far forward anyway, maybe a little bit more, a little bit better today. But that was the crux of the problem. You had invested, it was nearly like putting money in a horse. You had invested, you had your lambs bought, you had your feed bought, but you didn't know what you were going to get for them. And then in 8 years down the road anyway, we hit a bad year. And because we were operating with borrowed money, it wiped out, and we had to sell part of our buildings. That was, for me, was probably the lowest day that I was here. We had to sell part of our buildings to pay our debts. But lo and behold, we had, in the meantime, we had diversified. We were supplying feed, fertilizer, fencing posts, and the wool as well. We were taking the wool from the farmers, so anytime we brought in wool, I suppose we were trying to hold on to as much of the money as we could. And so that had developed, and a further 10 years down the road, we were in a position to buy back our buildings again and back to square one. And that was, for me, was probably a high point of my years here. Like, we started out with 347 shareholders, and we have a committee. There's 13 in a committee. They're spread all over the peninsula here, and a lot of those older members will be there. But we would have something, I suppose, like 700 or 800 people either supplying us wool, or we would be supplying them feed and fertilizer and that sort of a thing. Sheep numbers, which is a worrying thing for the co-op. Everything associated with farming, with dry stock farming, the numbers are dropping, the ages are getting older. It's great to see that the store lamb, the back end, I suppose, the people that fatten lambs made money on them, and it appears because the supply isn't as big, that there's a good chance the prices will hold this year. Like, you know, that's the early indication anyway.
When we started, lambs were from £2 to £7, and that's why it all started, because it was easy to get something going for. There was no money for anything, and any genuine improvement was a big improvement. I think we're at a crossroads again. Everything is changing. Organic farming is coming in a lot, and there's a different approach to everything. When we started, there was very little lowland sheep in West Kerry. It was all mountain sheep. Now it's nearly gone into the opposite, because there's the people aren't there to follow them on the mountains. So the whole thing is changing. It's an achievement to have got this far.
We had bad times and good times, and you know, with the price, when the price of meal increased, we weren't able to trade. You couldn't fatten lambs on meal and make a profit, so we had to give up at that stage.
It has been very important, I suppose. It's created employment where we didn't have employment going back, I suppose, the early 70s, right up until today. It's a great wool co-op to know that travel as far as north to or south to Prairie, into West Cork and stuff to collect wool. I suppose in the original years, the beginning, they were collecting about 600 tonne of wool a year. At the moment, it's down to about 400. But it's great for the locality. You know, it's an outlet for us that we can sell our wool into. If we didn't have this here, we'd have nowhere else to go. And on top of that, you know, they take part in all the research that's going on, happening at the moment. In the MTU in Tralee and UCC in Cork. They're part of the Irish Grown Wool Council, which is very important for us going forward. And you know, it's great for the locality. There's a great committee here. You know, it's brilliant. You know, for the committee starting in 1970, there's some of them still here today, and they're still as enthusiastic about wool as what they were when they started off here first day.
Wool isn't being used every day like it was once upon a time. Like, you know, we produce 6 million kilos of wool, for instance, here in this country. If every person used 1 kilo of wool in the year, we'd be self-sufficient. I think we have to do a bit of education and tell people, because all it needs is just a little bit of demand. That's going to lift prices, but they have to be prepared. It is an excellent product. You buy a woolen carpet, it'll probably do you 20-30 years.